Okay, everybody, here we are. It is Friday, October 18, 2019. This is my post-market wrap-up. This video is important in my view. I want to talk about what's lurking behind, what's the truth behind what the Federal Reserve is doing right now. Why are we hearing calls for lower interest rates? What's actually behind it? Is it really only to push stocks higher, or is there something else going on? I believe some of you already are putting this together in your head, or maybe you have an idea of what's really going on. So let's start off with the basics. What happened today? Stocks took a hit. Metals finished slightly lower. Cryptocurrencies finished slightly lower. I don't even talk about the debt market anymore, as most of you know. I used to talk about it every day. But in this environment, what's going on right now, there is no way to gauge which end is up and which end is down. So there's no reason, in my view, for me to even discuss what is happening in the debt market. All we do know is we have full-blown 100% quantitative easing. We have this repo scam going on and massive recapitalization of the banks. So what do we know? All right, windfall profits from the banks. Why is it that, not me, Fed President Bullard weeks ago explained that the banks were demanding capital in this environment? You see where I'm going with this? If you don't, bear with me. Now, what was the main issue during the meltdown of 2008, which literally would have sent the world into a Mad Max scenario that was on the verge of happening? It actually started. And then massive capital injections into the market, like we're seeing now, managed to save the day. I'm talking about a credit freeze. The real reason, what's lurking behind this new round of quantitative easing, asset purchases, the recapitalization of the bank, the calls for lower rates, okay? Larry Kudlow, Peter Navarro, the President of the United States screaming from rooftops. Why? What's going on? They're trying to prevent a credit freeze. The easy money must keep flowing. Without the availability of obscene amounts of easy cash, recapitalizing the banks, making sure that banks can lend to each other henceforth, lowering interest rates for that has nothing to do with you. I've explained to you forever now that neither Larry Kudlow, Peter Navarro, nor the president will ever step out and explain to you how lowering rates are going to help you. They will not help you. What they will do is allow the banks to lend to each other. Understand, banks lend to each other every night. This repo thing is part of it as well. If there is not capital to lend to each other to keep the system afloat, we get a credit freeze. That's what happened last time. This is why the Federal Reserve now, right at this moment, is choosing to pump hundreds upon hundreds of billions of dollars into the debt market, hundreds of billions of dollars into recapitalizing the banks. They are desperate right now to prevent a credit freeze. That's it. That's the root cause of why we are seeing what's going on. Look, our economy is in free fall. If you don't see it, you're blind. You're listening to propaganda and fakery and lies. Just look at their own data. Retail sales, again, falling off of a cliff. Everywhere you want to look, the news is negative in our economy, which is contracting. So the rhetoric is what it is. But the real reason is, I cannot tell you how desperate they are. This is just starting to prevent another credit freeze. So what would it mean if the credit markets freeze up due to a lack of liquidity? Okay? We understand the world is awash in debt, and that debt must be expanded on exponentially just to keep it flowing. That's what we're witnessing here, people. And again, if the Federal Reserve right now were not pumping all of this easy money into the credit market, the debt market, the credit market, if the Federal Reserve were not recapitalizing the banks, if the Federal Reserve were not involved in this repo scam, and believe me, it's not just the Federal Reserve and the banks too. These banks themselves are also involved in a repo scam as well. They are, it's called swaps. They are performing swaps between each other overnight, moving large amounts of capital in one direction and then the next day moving it back just to keep the flow of cash or liquidity moving. All right? This is much bigger than anyone, I believe, who does not understand central banking, who does not understand what's really going on behind the scenes with the big Wall Street banks. They have no idea. I study this stuff around the clock. I think I have a very clear perspective on understanding how the banking system works, how the central banking system works, more importantly, and how politics is playing into this entire thing. And why, henceforth, I talk about it all the time, the lies, the fakery, exposing what is going on around us here. So just to clarify, what we're witnessing here with the repo scam between the Federal Reserve and the banks themselves involved in swaps or repurchasing agreements, the enormous amount of liquidity being pumped into the market. Meanwhile, we have a world awash in debt. Right? It's not enough. It's not enough. Again, it goes back to what I have told you since time immemorial. We have a debt-based economic model. It demands that more cash be borrowed into existence in greater and greater amounts every day. Once this stops, we get a credit freeze and a complete meltdown. If we get another credit freeze, what does that mean for you? It means transactions stop. You go to your bank, you try to get cash out, it's not there. Gone. You got it? You will not be able to use your debit cards or anything else. This is why it's important to have some capital on hand, all right, in the event of a credit freeze. The only way to fix it, well, there is no way to fix it. The only way to keep it running is to do what the Fed is doing now, and to get deeper rate cuts. Believe me, Larry Kudlow, Peter Navarro, and the president are well aware of what's actually going on here. They cannot tell you that we are on the cusp of another credit freeze. If they are not successful, and at one point they're going to run out of the ability to pump liquidity into this whole thing, they will dilute the dollar. They will do whatever they have to do to keep this easy money flowing. That's why I explained to you weeks ago when this whole QE started, the repo scam and the recapitalization of the banks. I said this is just the beginning. You haven't seen anything yet because, again, they are trying to prevent a credit freeze. A credit freeze is a worst-case scenario. It will send the world, understand, the U.S. dollar remains the world reserve currency. If we get a credit freeze, it will cause a worldwide meltdown, unlike anything you've ever seen before. Pandemonium in the streets when people can't acquire things because there's no cash. There's no way to transact. Banks can't lend to each other. Henceforth, they can't lend to you. You understand? This stuff is not hard. If you listen to the right people, I believe I am one of them, and stop and ignore the nonsense, ignore the political division. Let's talk about politics a little bit. If there is one person out here that doesn't believe that, let's say, hypothetically, President Trump loses the next election, do you believe for a moment that the debt-based economic model is just going to go away? I can promise you that no matter what's coming out of the mouths of the Democratic hopefuls right now, you are going to see an explosion in debt acquisition worse than you're seeing now. Worse than you're seeing now. So get that delusion out of your head. There is nobody here, not President Trump, if he wins the election again, not any of these Democratic hopefuls, that if one of them wins is going to be able to stop the cascade, I don't even know how to put this, the unbelievable amount of debt acquisition that is about to come on your back. There is no way out of it. The only way for this thing to end, okay, and this is how it will end, is very, very, very simple. It's going to come to a screeching halt when all this liquidity, again, it's going to run into a moment here. No matter what they do, they cannot prevent the credit freeze and a worldwide freeze of transactions, of the ability to acquire capital, the ability to transact, the ability to get your paycheck, everything. We transact in their currency, their issued notes. That's how they have us all by the throats. You understand? This is why this guy has been explaining to you since forever. Bet against this debt. Become your own central bank. Hold an alternative currency. If that means a cryptocurrency, so be it. Something that will function outside the realm of central banking in the event of a credit freeze. And you're seeing the desperate act right now. This should be clear to you after this video. Why the Fed is doing what it's doing now. Why we are hearing calls to lower rates when our economy is supposedly doing so well. This whole thing is coming down together. And the last people to know are the zombies outside my window who think that this is just a game between one political party and the other. That's not what's going on here whatsoever. I can promise you that the Democratic hopefuls right now, unless they are that stupid, realize what is happening. Have you heard a word, a single syllable from any of the Democratic hopefuls right now with regard to what the Federal Reserve is doing right now? No, radio silent. Have you heard a word from the president about what the Federal Reserve is doing right now? No, radio silent. They are two heads of the same horrible snake. And if you believe that either party is on your side, then you are lost. This is every man and woman for himself. I don't know another way to put this here. It does not matter who sits in the pretty White House. This is by design what we're seeing here. And you are going to lose. I don't know another way to put this. You can't win. We, the people, cannot win. Let me go on to one more thing before I let you go. Awful long video. Let's talk about corporate America. What do they do and what is happening right now? We all know the scandal with Boeing and the MAX 8 jet. Keep this in mind. Boeing, a major component of the military-industrial complex. Right now, apparently, they're pointing the finger at a single pilot who lied to the FAA. Where have we seen this before? Corporate crime comes down to this. Insider trading, metals rigging, what's going on now with Boeing. They have to put a face on who's behind it. In other words, it can't be the corporation. It can't be any of the untouchables. It has to be one low-level person. In this case, Boeing is pointing their finger at the fall guy here. Oh, no. It's not the corporation, the corporate bigwigs who are responsible for this. It's the pilot's fault. It's the low-level guy or girl every single time. This is how dumb they think you are, that you're going to fall for this. You're going to fall for it. It's all over the news. Check it for yourself. The fall guy. Boeing has picked the fall guy. Not one corporate executive is going to get in trouble for this. It never happens. And we've seen this pattern over and over again. People, listen to me. I know what I'm talking about because I study this stuff. I watch it. I think I am pretty intuitive. And I hope that I'm allowing you to see what's going on around you. Maybe a little light will come through the darkness here. But again, let's put the corporate stuff aside. I just want to bring that to light so you understand that what you're seeing now and hearing is a show. It's a charade to protect Boeing, a major component of the military-industrial complex. They pick a fall guy, they point the finger at him, they hope the public gets it out of there. Oh, it's fine, the MAX 8's good, it's a good plane, Boeing is fine, it's this guy, he lied to the FAA. This is what they do. Bank after bank gets caught rigging the market, rigging the repo market, rigging every aspect of the market that you can think about. Have you heard of one corporate executive that's gotten in trouble? How about the meltdown of 2008? How many corporate executives got in trouble? How about zero? This should make sense to you, all of this. But going back to the main topic here, credit freeze. This is why you're seeing what you're seeing now. The onset of this is perpetual now. The Fed is involved in a perpetual scheme, the repo scheme, the bank swaps between each other, like I explained to you earlier. This is going on. You're not hearing anything about it. The unbelievable amount of debt acquisition. You're not hearing a word of this from any of the Democratic hopefuls, nor the president. No. QE in full force. No one's talking about it. The silence is deafening. All right, with that said, people, important video. Would you agree? Please share this video. Get it out there. Start talking about it. I don't think people get it. They don't know what's happening. They don't know why. Where the Federal Reserve is doing what it's doing right now. And you don't hear a word about it. It's supposed to be hidden. You're not supposed to hear about it. You're supposed to think that there is a conflict between the Fed and the president. There is no conflict whatsoever. The president knows what's going on. The president understands why the Fed is doing what it's doing right now. Clear as clear can be. And again, going back to the Democratic hopefuls, every one of them up there also knows what's going on, unless they have no business whatsoever trying to become president, not understanding the relationship between the monetary system and what central banks are doing. I think that is a possibility, but a remote one. I believe they all know what's going on. Henceforth, you're not hearing anything. You're not supposed to know. Okay, you're supposed to believe it's a war between the parties. You have to pick a side. You must pick one side or the other. 2, henceforth, why there's not a third party, you have to pick one side, keeping you over, keeping you distracted, keeping you off balance. You understand? This stuff is pretty amazing. And if you understand it, not only will it drive you crazy, but you're going to sit back when you hear things and go, this is just incredible. Is this really what's happening? Yeah, and you'll see that it actually is. People, I love all of you. I mean that. I'm going to leave you off with my favorite 3 things. Love each other, care about each other, be charitable, and if you count yourself in as part of my team, share the video. Get it out there. Let's see who we can wake up. Again, I'm out of here.